marks our 6-month anniversary since we switched from in-person events to the TiE virtual events format. And during this period, we've hosted various entrepreneurs, thought leaders, industry experts, as well as many online pitching sessions, including the TiE mentorship program, pitches, the TiE Young Entrepreneur, and the TiE Women Regional Semifinals. 35 plus events, almost 100 speakers, and close to 5,000 attendees have been through all of the events with us. We thank you all for being part of this exciting journey. Special thanks also to people dialing in from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. I saw a few messages now in the chat. We see also that our reach is growing beyond Dubai and into the region. Welcome, everyone. In order to get to know you a little bit more, we'd like to start with a small poll, a couple of questions to understand what profile you are and which sector you come from. Cecily, can you put the poll on? Meanwhile, as Cecily pointed out, and I have seen also a request from Dominique in the audience, today I'm not wearing a hat. There's a long story beyond my hats, but today I'm wearing a hoodie. So the hat is incorporated, and I'm putting, on the hat of the digital startup, which is sometimes associated with entrepreneurship as a concept. However, in TiE, we stick to the broader definition of entrepreneurship, which doesn't require an entrepreneur to be part of a digital or online startup. And that is why it is our pleasure actually today to host a farmer with us, a desert farmer, as some people like to call him. He's an exceptional entrepreneur. We will discuss with him non-traditional farming techniques, lessons from the 2020 lockdowns, both on the impact on food supply, as well as how to manage a non-digital business in this space and the workforce behind it, and the resulting opportunities. So without much further ado, I would like to welcome Omar Al Jundi, founder and CEO of Badia Farms, who's joining us today from Dubai after managing a last-minute trip back all the way from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Omar, I'm glad that you could make it today. Welcome. Please join me in giving him a warm round of digital applause. Fadal, Omar. Tell us a little bit more about your background, both literally, I see that you are in Dubai now, and virtually as well, and figuratively.
Sure. Well, thank you, TiE Dubai, for the opportunity. Thank you, Ziad, for hosting this session. A bit of background about me. Omar Al Jundi. I grew up in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. I went to this is a nice story. So I was in a Saudi school in Jeddah, and at the time Saudis could not go into foreign schools, British or American. So I had to go to a Bahrain school to attend the American school over there for my last 2 years in high school, after which I graduated with American diploma and I was able to go to the US. So when I went to do that test in the Bahrain school, everything I was doing was in Arabic, in the Saudi school. Yes, we did have English classes, but it wasn't for science or biology or math. So when I went and I did the math test, I did everything backwards. Anyway, so they said, look, you need to redo, I spent the whole summer studying math and biology and all the classes in English. And then I went again, took the test, and luckily I was able to go into that 11th grade. So I graduated with American diploma, my father wanted to keep me in the region in a local university, and I wanted to go to the US. So my first year of college, I went to Lehigh University, which is in a small town called Bethlehem in Pennsylvania. And to my surprise, when I got there, they didn't have McDonald's. So I was like, Dad, you tricked me. This is not the US. So I ended up transferring to University of Miami, where I did my undergrad in industrial engineering, and I did my MBA. After which I came back to Saudi Arabia, came back to the region. I started my first job at Saudi American Bank in Jeddah in the corporate banking division. It was a great experience. It exposed me to different industries and different companies. What are the success factors for each in its space? At the time Citibank were owners, so they're owners of the bank. So they had a full Citibank training curriculum. So I worked there for 2.5 years. After that, it was my first entrepreneurial experience. It was the first big lounge in Jeddah. It was called Java Lounge. It was such a hit. We were able to attract, other franchises from abroad, such as Bread Talk from Singapore, Kebabji from Lebanon. And So these two, and then we opened another sushi concept called Senses, and I exited a few years later to join the family business, which is an architectural and engineering firm that my father started back in 1985. It's called Saudi DR Consultants, and I worked there for 10 years. After these 10 years, I just wasn't inspired enough. All the learnings that I got there, I wasn't learning anything new, and that's when I started that journey of this discovery. Discovering really what do I want to do, what's that next challenge for me, until I was introduced to the concepts of modern farming and hydroponics to a friend, and I was just fascinated. I fell in love with it. It's as if a bulb went off in my head. And I was like, wow, this is perfect for our region. We could now grow with no soil. We could use 90% less water. We could do it anywhere at any time. I just couldn't believe it. And that's where that whole journey, the past 5 years have taken me into the making of Badia Farms.
So from seeking fast food, McDonald's, to starting a few F&B, ventures, into actually getting deeper into the food supply chain, did you see a certain evolution, or it was completely fascination with the technology that got you into vertical farming and hydroponics?
It was pure fascination. We're not an agricultural area in this part of the world. We always always say we eat because we have to eat, not because we are actually enjoying the different varieties of fruits or vegetables, the different tastes, that you experience when we are abroad. So just having a solution or having a way that can make this possible, just to me is just mind blowing, honestly.
And I'm sure a lot of people thought that you were out of your mind for doing this, because the supply chain and the variety of food that are available in the region is quite high. I mean, I always say some of the best seafood I get is usually in Riyadh. So what was the kind of feedback that you got when you decided to go in the direction?
No, correct. And so initially, when I was telling people that's what I'm doing, I'm trying to set up a farm in the middle of an industrial area, they thought I'm nuts, and they thought this is not possible, and everyone never heard of it. And also when we were going to chefs and inviting chefs initially to come and try the crops and see what we've done, they were all skeptical as well. When you send them when we used to share our location in Al Quoz area in downtown Dubai, they just couldn't believe it. They're like, we're going to visit a farm in the middle of an industrial area. So it was a lot of skeptics. Honestly, crops in the middle of the desert with no soil. At times I just thought I've lost it. But
so how did you manage? I'm sure you were afraid. I mean, they always say, entrepreneurship is a roller coaster. So you have these thrilling ups, but then you have the down when at the beginning, at the top, you're really scared. How did you manage this fear and the possibility of fear?
So luckily to me, the investors or in the company are the family. So it was the support of my dad, my mother, my sister, my brother. They always kept me focused on that final goal. Although initially, going to market took us much longer. Finalizing the system that we've designed in-house took much longer. But they kept me focused. So I think having a group of investors or that could support entrepreneurs is very, very important. That believe as well in the vision, the mission, and the cause of what's trying to be done. Because as entrepreneurs, we're always creating something out of nothing, and a lot of times we could be successful or we could fail. But having the support, I think, is essential for the success of entrepreneurs. So finding the right investors, finding strategic investors that can add value along the way is essential for the success of an entrepreneur.
And if we talk a little bit about what I like to call the elephant in the Zoom in this case, I mean, why are you still one of the only one, or maybe one of the very few who are doing this in a region that obviously can do a lot more with this kind of alternative farming? what's stopping this from, becoming a much bigger industry within the industry?
Well, I think there could be a few points here. One, I think the government, especially now after COVID, are truly focused on the issue of self-sufficiency and food security, but they haven't done enough yet. So, for example, there needs to be they need to facilitate, having these farms. So, for example, the government could maybe have a vertical farming zone where it's dedicated for vertical farms, or greenhouses. I mean, still, when modern farms are coming to set up in this region, we still have to go through the same steps as any other company. So where are we going to set up this farm? What are the power rates? Therefore there needs to be serious steps taken and shown to attract vertical farms. I mean, our power bill is quite huge. If there's a way this could be subsidized, having that zone, banks, local banks where they could provide, we'd call them maybe green loans, or loans that are not, the requirements are not similar to other business that is being studied or reviewed. But there's a lot that needs to be done, I think, to attract. In addition, investors as well are still skeptical of this industry. Is it really going to stand on its feet, or is it just a trend? And are vertical farms going to be sustainable, or it's just something that's going to go away? But there's still a lot of room. I think we have not scratched the surface, or in terms of the potential of the technology and what it could deliver for this region.
And in terms of that particular, and since now we touched a little bit on the topic of COVID and the restrictions that came, and the security of the food supply chain. I mean, I know from the first time we spoke, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, that what we provided is more in terms of the micro herbs that we use to see in high-end restaurants, cinnamon flavored basil, I remember, was very interesting, and a few other similar varieties. Is it today more mainstream, and are you part of the let's say wider food supply chain?
Well, initially we started with the high value crops such as the microgreens and the herbs and these niche products. But as we evolve, as we produce different grow systems and understand more about this technology and the plant science, the idea is to move to mainstream products and make it available to everyone. Because really, you cannot address food security with microgreens or lettuces alone. But the idea is to move to the mainstream products as we continue growing and advancing and building our own IP.
And from that perspective, there's a whole movement globally of getting the food closer to the table, and I can only imagine that a network of distributed vertical farms can really advance the source so close to the table ultimately, and provide some of the best quality experiences to the end users. And actually, this is quite interesting because it's the similar. It's a similar concept in technology, to the extent that where we put our servers, we call them server farms and data centers. So the farm concept is actually very digital at the same time. When do you expect this to become a reality globally and in the region?
It's a good point. I believe it's a place like Dubai, where developers would start assigning, I would say, within a community, for example. So Omar would set up a zone and says, okay, this would be a vertical farm or a modern farming hub. And then, so it will take, again, the work of all different stakeholders to see this as a reality, but we're not far from it. But again, it just takes that first developer to come in and assign an area and say this is the hub or this is the zone within that community to set up that vertical farm, for example. And I think it will take one developer to do it and set up a model, and then you will see it just all the developers are implementing it.
Is it happening outside of the region, in other countries, in other regions of the world?
I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen it yet, but we're not far from it. So within, I think, 5 to 10 years. But again, it's a matter of, or maybe, for example, the municipalities would come, the municipality would come and say, okay, within this community now, they obviously dedicate an area for power, for example, the substation, dedicate an area for vertical farms. There is the sustainability city in Dubai. Yes. And they've tried to implement a sort of a similar model where they have mini farms or mini dedicated domes for to grow, different leafy greens.
Exactly, I heard about it, and it's an interesting experiment. But going back a little bit to the lockdowns, and let's talk, business and leadership now. Your business is highly physical at the same time. You had to deal with a situation where probably most of your employees were in lockdown. I'm not sure if it was considered as an essential industry and you had the permits or not. What was the challenge that you faced, and how did you deal with that during this last 6-month period?
Sure. So we were lucky that we were one of the activities that was permitted to function and operate. Now there's two parts, the external and internal to this question. The external part is when all our sales was going 95% plus was going to hotels. Right. And restaurants and chefs. So we had to focus on the other market that opened up, which was retail and online sales. And we had to do this quickly. We had to come up with a new product offering, because what we were selling to hotels was something, and what consumers are looking for is something else. So we had to very quickly adjust our game, adjust our product offering, and we were able to recover from that big drop. Now, in terms of staffing, I think it was important for us, or for me, to be transparent. As a manager, we had to be transparent with them. We kept them updated with everything going. The measures that we're going to take, how we're going to deal with. When we actually informed them, well, we might have to reduce their salaries in parallel to the decrease in sales. But luckily, we were able to. We didn't have to do that. But again, and to my surprise, they were very supportive as well. Said whatever it is, we would do it for Badia, which was great as well. It showed what they're made of.
That's amazing. And to go back a little bit to the first point you tackled. So right now, as the economy is opening up a little bit more and hospitality is somehow coming back on track, how much of your business towards hotels and mostly restaurants is coming back? How much is it of the total business that you do today compared to the 95%?
So it picked up a bit. I think it's at, I'd say 50%. Okay. Right now, 40 to 50%. But we are running at full capacity. So again, it was this whole COVID situation forced us to get into retail, explore that market, and now that that market is going, and the hotels are back, we're looking to go to a setup to expand and go to a bigger facility so we could take her to both segments.
Excellent. So now that probably created also a new consumer behavior that didn't exist before, some awareness in the consumer about certain products that now they can get in their houses directly from you. Are you selling directly, or are you selling through existing online retailers?
No, we're selling through online retailers. and we're going to launch our online, Badia's online cart soon. That's coming. But what I'll tell you what's very interesting for us, for example, Ziad and the viewers, we have not done any marketing, in terms of Badia. So all our sales that are online, these are just somebody who had tried it and as just a return customer. So it speaks volumes about, the actual quality of the product, the actual taste, and why people are coming back. So we plan on maybe having a full marketing, communication strategy coming up probably by end of the year once we set up our new facility.
And how much, going back to the topic that we discussed in terms of getting very close to the table. At the same time, we're also getting used to a lot more flexibility and as consumers and possibility to customize. How much choice do we have today when we order from Badia? How are you actually much better maybe than a traditional farm or a distributor that is importing vegetables from outside? What is the strong differentiation?
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because we do live in a hyper customization, and everyone has the world at their fingertips, and everyone wants to choose and pick, and we're spoiled. We're spoiled right now as as people. What I think what's going to be very interesting is once consumers can order directly from the farm, because right now, I said, for example, the online platforms, they come pick it up from us and then they deliver it the next day. So once consumers have that accessibility where they place the order, we harvest the crop and send it to their house, I think they're going to be blown away, and this is going to become the mode of what they're going to be accepting, versus waiting for something to come in from the US or from Europe, where they could see it. They would be able to compare the deterioration that happens to the product versus being 100% fresh.
I mean, the experience is completely different, right? Because that freshness is not only on the first day; it's going to last for a substantial amount of time compared to something that you pick up from the supermarket that has been through many trucks and warehouses and maybe even airplanes along the way. Correct? How does it feel for a normal consumer? What are they going to see that is different? And I see also Chef Bobby sending us a message, and he's really saying that the quality and nutrition of the fresh harvest is wow. So can you elaborate a little bit on that? Maybe let's talk about the nutritional science behind this.
So a big thing is we do not use any pesticides on the plane. You're giving the 7-star facility in which you give them a day temperature, a night temperature. Again, you're spoiling the plants as well, and it's reflected in the taste. So you've got the freshness is out of this world. Again, because there was a lot of skeptics as well. This is not a natural form of growing. That if it's not soil, it's not correct. But until they tasted the product and they realize, okay, no, this is as good as it gets as well. And when we sell the product, we say it lasts for a week, but it actually, and in my fridge, I keep it for 14 days.
14 days.
So that all of that as well. Once we have scale and consumers have access to this, they're never going to go back to anything else, and that's what they're going to be demanding.
I'm going to open an intermediate Q&A forum, because I see that we have a few questions that came up, and then we continue also with our flow. So we have Aftab, which I believe is Aftab Ahmed, is also watching us from Jeddah. Is scalability and diversification to other crops easy in your business?
So scalability of what we have mastered and what we have proven commercially is straightforward, because it's just a matter of adding systems, increasing the number of levels. Other crops depends. So we've mastered the leafy greens, we've mastered the strawberry, and now we are R&Ding other crops as well. So the scalability of other crops is still limited, but it's just that I believe it's a matter of time as the industry evolves and develops. Other crops will become commercially viable on a large scale.
But what we are doing here in terms of leafy greens and strawberry, for instance, is exactly what's happening all over the world. This is the state of the art that the industry has reached, and we are evolving at the same pace as everyone else, I would say.
Correct. Because the whole industry still has its infancy stage, really. So that's a very good point. That is the general state of vertical farming globally.
Very good, interesting. I ask a little bit more questions. So since you mentioned strawberries, I'll jump to the last question here from Shanmuga Sundaram. And are you using air conditioning for strawberries, or do you use a fan and pad system? This is a very technical question, so maybe you can answer briefly here and you can have a longer discussion online.
Yeah, sure. So the pad and fan, we don't use pad and fan. Pad and fan are mostly in greenhouses. Mid-tech greenhouses. The issue with pad and fan cooling is it consumes a lot of water. In our case, no, we use normal cooling units, which consumes power, but not water.
Okay. And that's because maybe power is more available than water right now in the region, right?
Yes, and in our region, with the addition of solar panels, then this could be really a fully sustainable solution.
Exactly. So the question from Muntasir is there technology available for planting in salty water or even chemically contaminated water today?
There is technology in where plants can resist this, or a technology to filter and...
I believe he means that planting it today in salty water.
There's a lot of R&D where they are trying to test growing crops with, for example, 10% of seawater or 20% or 30%. A lot of research being done on tomatoes, but there isn't a commercial solution yet.
Okay, very good. That we know. A question... again, to continue the topic of water, and we have Dominique from our sustainability partners, HSBC, asking if you recover the AC water and reuse it for irrigation. So do you have like a full closed loop?
Yes. So one, we do that, and also we're managing the humidity through these dehumidifier units. Each one of these captures, it harvests the humidity from the air and it transforms it to water. So each one of these units gives us 60 liters a day.
Wow, amazing.
I got another question as well. When can we get regular supply of your microgreens and strawberries? So the microgreens are available. You could get them through Kipson's. We're at Carrefour, Spinneys. The strawberries will be in the new facility.
Okay, we look forward to that. I see a lot of questions, so we're going to try to save them, and maybe we do a continuing of the Q&A in case we miss any later on social media, on our channels. But one question that I'm interested that I see here, still on the technology, before maybe we move into the business side, but Sankaran is asking if you're not using any pesticides, how do you control mosquitoes or other creatures that affect the leafy vegetables? I don't know if they can get into your facilities or you have to do anything for that.
Yeah, so with the facility is fully insulated, and we have like measures in place. So anyone coming in from the outside, they have to go through an air shower. If there's any contamination on the body, then they have to wear the what do you call it? The overalls, and then you cover the hair and the shoes. But there's something called yellow stickers or they're traps to capture any insects that end up somehow coming, because this is the natural habitat. You've got plants, you've got the LED to mimic the sun. So we end up getting really tiny insects, but we've got these stickers, yellow stickers. Or yellow sticker traps to capture them.
So the end-to-end environment is very well controlled. I'll take a couple of more questions that relate to the business side before we continue. And a question from Spain, actually, if to find out if actually the business is cash flow positive and profitable, and from an anonymous attendee, what would be the ROI in vertical farming? So maybe you can say a few words about this before we continue, and then we'll come back to Q&A at the end of the session.
Sure.
Let's talk about profits.
Yeah. Hello, viewer from Spain. Right now, we need scale, we need a bigger facility, so we're still incurring monthly losses. But once we move to the new facility, then we will become cash flow positive. So that answer, what was the second word? The IRR?
ROI.
Our return on investment. Well, honestly, it depends on the scale of the farm, the yield, and the price in which you're going to be selling the crop. So these are the determining factors. But from what I've seen, you need scale and you need time in agriculture in general, because you're not selling a Chanel bag. It's a lettuce, and you're limited with the price in which you could command or ask for.
Amazing. Like any other business, I guess scale is a major part of the equation. Let's talk a little bit more science. And I love this scene from The Martian when Matt Damon's lab gets blown up or farm, and then he decides to rebuild it. And the famous quote is, "Let's science the I'm going to censor myself. Let's science the out of this." So tell us a little bit more about the science, since there has been many questions. Like, what is the magic that allows, this crop to grow without any soil? What is the barrier to entry? Then why doesn't everybody do it technically? And what should we learn if we want to get into this and maybe start our own very micro farm in the house?
You could. Well, the magic happened when the hydroponic technique was introduced, because that replaced the soil with the water medium. And that's why the yield is much higher. So for example, in a conventional farm or open field farm, you could get maybe 3 to 4 cycles of lettuce, while indoors it can go up to 12. That's because we're putting the nutrients in the water. The roots are in the water, and they capture they capture the nutrients immediately, and that whole cycle of growth is much shorter versus in soil, where you put it in, and then there's the bacteria, and then have to transfer it, and then the roots would take it. Why doesn't anyone? We can all do it, but it's just a matter of again, you have to make it a commercial business. I mean, all the greenhouses do use hydroponic techniques, and all the modern farms are coming up now. You are using hydroponic techniques, which is a soilless agriculture. They grow in cocoa peat or these cotton like blocks.
And this is accessible, like even at a certain scale, for a consumer to grow something, or do you think we still need to be in a very controlled farm environment?
It could be grown. It could be grown at home. I mean, you can find these kits right now that you plug in with some lights. They give you the seeds, and it could be done. But again, it's just a matter of you won't get the right yield. Because to get the right yield, commercial yield requires, managing all the inputs that go in, the oxygen in the water, having the correct light spectrum, having the right temperature, humidity, carbon dioxide in the air. So, and this is really where the IP is going to become. It's going to differentiate each vertical farm from the other. Versus, we're gonna all have. Once the industry matures, we're all going to have access to the same, lights or the same grow systems. But what's going to differentiate one company from the other is, that team behind it, that know-how, that nutritional formula, nutritional recipe. that would have big effect on the taste and the quality of the product.
So how realistic is, or maybe not today, but at what stage do you think what we saw in The Martian is actually possible? And because we all know that space technology usually is very good at pioneering a certain method that then trickles down and becomes maybe more consumer oriented. So do you see that we are going to be able to do this farming on other planets or on the moon, or is it being done today within the International Space Station? And is that contributing to the advancement that you are seeing in your day-to-day business?
So what they are doing, for example, now at NASA is very similar to what vertical farms are doing. It's plus or minus the same thing, really. And yeah, this, the vertical farm, the beauty of it, you can just plug it in anywhere in the world. And you can plug it in any, you can put it on moon or Mars, but again, it is its own unit. It has its own characteristics, how you control it, and you can just plug it in anywhere. So we are all on that same page right now and doing the same thing.
Very good. And I continuously looking at the questions because we're getting a lot of questions. So bringing it back to Earth, I have a question. We have a question from another anonymous attendee. And are you collaborating with NEOM? Because that's really the city of the future, very close to us now. And you being from Saudi Arabia, is there any effort within NEOM happening on that level?
We've spoken to several governmental entities, and NEOM, for example, is one of the mega cities. Everyone is still wants to support in the R&D phase or R&D direction, versus we are already, we've finished R&D, we have a commercial setup, and we're looking for actually to set up somewhere and just expand and scale and sail and scale versus going to R&D. So I've spoken to NEOM several times.
Very good. And we hope to see more of that, as you said, like developers adopting this as a requirement or as a basic part of their master plans. I'll skim also again through the Q&A around the technology part, and the question from Ashish, also our president-elect in TiE. What are your views on plant-based meats? And are you planning to start growing? That's my question. Any meat in your farms? And then we'll talk a little about the science of that.
Good question. I haven't gotten into it yet. I haven't reached that level. It's very interesting. I have to learn more about it to be able to answer this question.
But according to Ashish, I guess it's a bit of the antithesis of what you have, because to sustain that you will need a lot of preservatives, and on the contrary, what you are providing is maybe something very fresh and to the point. So that's my assumption. Am I correct with that?
Yeah.
It seems good. Okay, let's talk a little bit more business. There are many questions also about the tech part, so maybe we will, if we have more time at the end, we'll answer them. Lessons that you learned, and like some of the mistakes that you have done. Maybe this is a very difficult topic usually, and what you have learned from them.
Through my entrepreneurial journey, or specifically with the farm.
Let's start with the farm, and then if you have a nice also story from pre-farm days, why not?
With the farm, again, because there isn't a off-the-shelf solution that you can take and implement. So a lot of it was trial and error, and we had to go through these mistakes and learn from our own faults versus zipping through that whole stage or whole learnings. One thing I've learned is, growers are like doctors. Everyone has an opinion. So what we do is we have a pool of consultants that we always work with when we need some advice on any area. You know what I mean? So and we ask that same question to each one of them, because a lot of times we just get a different answer. So a learning for me is rather than having having to hire a full team of agriculturist or agronomist or horticulturist. Yes, have your basic team in-house, but have access to a much wider range of opinions and advices. Because still, everyone is still learning how to grow in a vertical farm.
So would you say that you have taken a relatively cautious approach, that is why maybe you haven't had any major stumbles or mistakes in this particular business? Have you had any, like really bad situations where something went wrong at the beginning and you had to fix it? Or was it always very cautious and relatively safe journey?
I would say cautious, or wasn't safe, but it's, we have to make sure you cover step one before you go to step two. Step three is that engineering methodology. So for our systems, we've set up a small system, which was maybe 2 levels and 2 meters. After that, we put the 5 level, 8 meters. It's just, we were doing it step by step, just to make sure we don't mess up anywhere along the way.
Very good. And question from Chef Bobby, since now you are one of the, the first movers in this region, there's a strong advantage to that. What are you doing right now to expand and scale rapidly? What's your next phase?
So right now we're meeting with investors to raise funding to enable us to really expand and capitalize in the UAE and in Saudi Arabia.
So these are the first 2 markets where you are going to expand initially. And this is due to what, the investment climate, the demand? What is the reasons behind these particular markets?
Well, UAE, because that's where we're set up. The demand, there's a big demand here. We've done the hard part really, which is proving the technology, opening the market, opening the sale channels, getting letters of intent. So one, there's a big demand over here, and secondly, Saudi as well. There's a big demand. I mean, Saudi Arabia last month they introduced an importation tax, 15% on all fruits and vegetables that get imported. So this is great because now you're starting to protect your local farmers and your local industry. So this is one of the things that governments in the region need to look at, because at times it is cheaper when the government, for example, in Holland goes in and supports their local farmers, they subsidize a lot of the freight costs, for example. So it arrives to Dubai, and it's not expensive at all.
Okay, I see what you mean. And is there any, it seems like you have to do everything yourself and to grow this. Are there any alternative business models that you are looking at? I don't know, maybe partnerships or some form of franchising that would allow you to grow faster. If somebody is interested to say, I want to open Badia Farms in Lebanon, or someone in Spain, as we have seen, might be interested. Is there a model that you are looking at?
I mean, this will come, I think, in a few years. Once we've enhanced our offering, once we have ideally you would want to have a vertical farming complex with X amount of crops, because it's a economies of scale game as well.
So that it becomes attractive to others.
Exactly. So that's in the pipeline, but I think we're just a few years, maybe 2 to 3 years. Once we've mastered that growing, once you're ready to franchise it. So that's one.
We focused. Go ahead. Sorry, I'll ask you.
So that's one part. Another part would be as well partnerships. Partnerships between vertical farm or like Badia and another vertical farm in Europe or the US, where they have mastered possibly growing a different crop or a different process, or doing it in a cost-effective manner. I think these two would work to expanding this industry.
And I know that we focused a little bit on the local markets because we see a clear advantage being closer to the end user and the last mile. But is there also anyway an advantage, since you have such a high yield? You mentioned up to 12 times compared to 12 cycles per year for lettuce compared to 3 to 4 cycles, and literally you can have your farm in the Dubai airport free zone or Jabal Ali free zone, right? Is there an advantage also in exporting where you can still be fresh and competitive compared to a regular export of vegetables and produce?
There is a good possibility for that to be successful. It's a great idea. Again, because the product lasts longer. The product, there's any pesticides on it. It's a lot more nutritious. So you could it's a matter of working out the logistics. But that's a big possibility. But I mean, in our immediate time right now or short term, there's a big demand, a big opportunity to just cater to this region versus having to export. But export could come in 10, 15 years. Yeah, sure, why not?
And since we mentioned the airport, Ashish that's also a very interesting question now, pointing out that Carrefour and Emirates, for instance, Emirates Flight Catering, have invested in their own hydroponic farms. So do you see a possibility of some of the big clients actually, going directly vertical, literally vertical, also in their business model and planting their own, needs?
So the Emirates catering announcement was done. It was two or 3 years ago, and it was a partnership with an American company. They had put forth, I think, $40 million, but that project is still on hold, by the way. So it was never started.
I see. And why not then do it with Badia Farms, for instance, or they didn't do anything at all?
I mean, if you know them, I think you should.
Ashish, I'm sure can maybe point us in the right direction. Before we start winding down, so since we have so many people interested and so many questions, I asked Cicely to save these questions for us, and maybe we can answer them in the comment section of the post on LinkedIn later. And also, a little bit of self-promotion. So really, if we want to buy the products now, right after this session is over, where would you direct our listeners and viewers to go and purchase, and what would you recommend them to try this weekend? Chef Bobby, I'm sure, can provide some nice recipes as well.
Sure, we'll do that. So you want me to say this now or write it on the...
you can say it and then we can write it on social media.
We're available at Carrefour, we're available at Spinneys, and online you can find us on kipsons.com. I would recommend trying, we've got 4 lettuce varieties mixed with microgreens. So we've got the Asian mix, gourmet mix. I would recommend the gourmet mix. It's our number 1 seller. And then you can get as well the microgreens. So coriander is very strong and very powerful.
That's very, very nice to hear. And, since we started talking about hats and headgear, I expected you today also to be wearing the Saudi Utra on the Saudi National Day, but maybe, a nice time to take a day off as well. And congratulations to all our Saudi listeners and attendees in the audience. Any hats that you have maybe come across during your journeys, between Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Miami?
Sure. Yeah, I have. This is my favorite.
So, is there a story behind it that you want to share?
So this is when I never had heard of. I've heard of American football, but I didn't understand it until I went to the US, and I really got into it. And University of Miami's football team is called the Hurricanes. I love the game now. I used to go watch it. This was worn by a linebacker called Dan Morgan, number 44.
Oh, okay, so it's a collectible, but you were not actually an American football player yourself.
No, I wish I was. I'm too small. I mean, you see them on campus; they're like 6'5" and stuff. But yeah, so this is my favorite one.
There is always a way to be part of the game, I guess. Thank you very much, Omar. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us. really hope you enjoyed this amazing conversation and the interesting insights and knowledge that Omar shared with us, as well as the lessons that he's been through. As I said, we will share answers to the existing Q&A maybe later in our social media posts, and feel free to ask us more interesting questions there. Before we leave, please give a final round of virtual applause to Omar, and take a minute to answer our exit poll so that we know how we are doing with these events, and hopefully continue to improve and do better in the future. Thanks a lot for everyone who was part of making this also event a very good one. Rohit, Cecily, and the whole team in TiE Dubai. And also important to note that Omar himself is a TiE Dubai charter member as well, and we appreciate him being with us every year. I see the session's answers are coming through, and everybody is happy so far. That's great. Thanks a lot, Omar. Look forward to catching up very soon and to try some of your wonderful produce this weekend.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.